Do the signal.
Do the signal.
That's the moose, man. The moose. Okay, I'll start it off then. Max Rowe, my friend, welcome to the Super Connector podcast.
Thanks, Alec. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So, starting off with a couple of my favorite questions. What is your zodiac sign and spirit animal?
Well, as you are well aware, I'm a Scorpio. I was born on October 31st. Yes, that's right. And I did bring up my entire astrological sign if you wanted to know my entire chart.
Entire chart. I know you're Sag moon, correct?
Yes. So I am a Scorpio sun, Sagittarius moon, with a Scorpio Mercury and a Sagittarius Venus. And then it goes Mars Libra, Jupiter Cancer, Saturn Capricorn, then Capricorn, Scorpio. And I'm an Aries ascending. So
Aries ascendant.
Yeah, it's something I didn't know until just now. And I'm not totally sure what that means, but
yeah, I remember we didn't have that information on you before, so good to know, and makes some sense for you. So you got the water, fire.
I know that's what I was.
You're a fiery Scorpio. So also something that I always think about with Aries is like this kind of like lighthearted adventure, like they really just, it's like, let's get out and do something and have fun, like that's one of the things like I love about my Aries friends is that kind of just like, let's go for it. Let's go. So I think I see a lot of that like adventure Scorpio stuff with you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm usually up for a good adventure. I've definitely been on a lot of adventures. I'm noticing actually, are you wearing your magic T-shirt?
Yeah, I have my magic T-shirt on. You can't really see it in this light, but you can't. The hidden psychedelicness is fading out of it, but it's there. It's in there.
So just for the viewers, Alec, at one point we were working together at the Vail Ski School and won an amazing trip to Mexico and decided to take me for who knows what reason, but anyways, it was a
girlfriend.
That was a really great adventure.
That was a really great adventure. I won it with a magic backpack.
And that T-shirt was in it.
And the T-shirt was in the backpack. So I might as well throw out the backpack story. We had that day, I wasn't going to even get up. Weren't you the person who was like, hey, Alec, you should come out here in case you win a trip to Mexico? Did you say that?
I don't recall saying that. I wouldn't put it past me, but I've always really enjoyed that. And the employee day that they put on is like, it's one very nice thing that Vail does for all of its employees, where they like have a big barbecue and they open the mountain up to just us, and then at the end of the day they raffle off a trip to Mexico. So, and at one point another person that we knew had won it a few years before. Fusco won it, and we were always, me and Andy at least, were like, well, if Steven can win, fucking anybody can win.
We can do it, yeah. Yeah, so I specifically that day was feeling very tired out and kind of skied out and was like, you know what? I'm going to go in and win that trip to Mexico because it's going to be worth it. And the way it happened at the end was there were 12 of us who had our names drawn, and we were all lined up with our backs facing this kind of lineup of 12 backpacks. So the idea was we would turn around and we would run to the backpacks, and whoever got the magic backpack with the magic airplane in it was going to be the one who won the trip. And so I'm like, I'm going to win this trip, like no doubt about it. So I turn around and I sprint to the back and get this blue backpack that's all the way in the back. And apparently for the people who were watching, they're like, you were pretty much the only one who ran. Everybody else slowly meandered to get their backpacks, but I was like turned around and ran because I knew that was the one. and I got it, and opened it up and won that trip to Mexico. So we got to have that beautiful experience together. Some follow-up info on that magic backpack is that it recently got eaten by a critter.
Oh no!
Which was almost a very sad moment for me. It was like, it was in this storage space and something got into it because there was like some food had left in it. So it got eaten up. But I was like sad for a moment, and then I was like, you know what? That backpack's not magic. I'm magic.
Bravo. I know you carried around your art supplies in it for several years after that.
Yeah. I used it to travel to many a festival live painting site, and it brought much magic into our lives. So
and
big love and rest in peace to the magic backpack.
And that trip especially, I remember it was a spectacularly healing experience for me, where on that trip I contemplated and thought about my life, and in particular my sobriety, in a new way. And like just being near the ocean was it was just fantastic. And to say like sobriety, like we were still drinking on the trip, but it just, it opened my mind and myself to new ways of thinking. At that point I had been like completely sober, and then on the trip it was kind of like, they're serving like free alcohol, like, can I handle this? And was able to try some and kind of introduce it back into my life in a way that like now I have a really like a totally fine and healthy relationship with it. And that was a great experience, as well as I also took a lot of steps to recover, or at least repair, other relationships that I had in my life after talking with you a lot about, how it had affected me so much. So yeah, wow, what a great experience that was.
Yeah, the Moon Palace in Riviera Maya. That's beautiful to hear. I didn't really have that full circle about the experience for you, so I appreciate you telling that.
For sure.
And yeah, for having free drinks the entire time, we were basically sober.
Well, we did a good job controlling ourselves, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really got to the point of like really being drunk. Definitely not drunk as a lemur. There was one night we stayed out late, and the whole time was it was a really beautiful time. So cheers to that. I want to start off or continue on with something that, just to give context to everybody, like, who are you? What do you like to do? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am a Colorado native. I grew up in Denver, and I also grew up skiing in Vail, and that's where I met you and your brother Andy and a bunch of other really amazing people. I was a ski instructor with you for several years, and I'm also an artist, and we've also painted together a whole bunch, which is something we did on the trip. Currently, so I did that for several years. I also rode the pedicab, which is kind of a friend zone thing as well. And
Vail Pedicab. Shout out to Vail Pedicab.
And from there, I decided to kind of go out on a limb and travel to Japan and see like what it was like to live out there for the winter and ski a whole bunch, because I really love to ski powder, and that's like the powder mecca. So I did that, and I ended up meeting my wife out there. And we've been married for a year now, and we met 2 years ago, or 2 years before we got married. And I started running my own kind of guiding business in Japan and inviting other Westerners to come out there and experience it in the way that I feel like is the best way to experience it, which is like a lot of like the really kind of luxury part of traveling and skiing kind of stripped away, and it's very brought back to like the really basics of like get up, get on the hill and ski pow as hard as you can all day, hit the onsen, have a delicious meal afterwards, and then go to bed. And I kind of feel like I optimized that for myself, and I wanted to share that with other people. So I did that. And then last year, we did kind of have a really stinky snow season, and I decided, and then COVID hit while I was there. So over the summer, I guess kind of decided I'll take a break from traveling. And this year I'm back in Vail. I'm working at a hotel, and still, as always, art has been like a constant throughout my life. I started painting when I was probably 10 years old, taking classes from a neighbor. And for myself, I really enjoy painting, skiing, as well as all kind of scenes of nature. And then I do also a lot of digital artwork. And with my digital artwork, I kind of explore a lot more themes and ideas that you could consider visionary, but you could also just consider them, I don't know, anything else. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Let me get a little closer here. There we go. Yeah, so the biggest thing that we have in common is the painter and skier combo. We spend a lot of time doing both of those things together, sometimes at the same time, but mostly separately. I think that day of skiing down the mountain while making a painting is some of the lost footage that I don't know where it went, but that's something we did together, which was kind of a wild, messy experience.
Yeah, that was a peak experience for sure. I mean, it was closing day, which is always like a really rowdy time in Vail, and yeah, we had a great time just drawing a mountain while we were skiing downhill, filming each other, going switching it up with markers, and just being kind of weird and out there, but we tried it. We just wanted to know, what is it like to do these two things that we love at the exact same time?
Yeah, it's the only way to find out. And actually, one thing that I found out that was surprising is that it's actually much easier to paint if you're skiing backwards than if you're skiing forwards. That's what skiing switch means for those of you who are not skiers.
I think it was too, because like if you're holding the painting and it's like catching all the air and like pushing it at you, but if you were like kind of skiing backwards and sideways a little bit, it was a little more aerodynamic.
Yeah, it's the go with the flow method to paint while skiing. And you can, it gives your painting shelter, keeps it from getting hit in the wind, and then in addition to that, there's the style element, which is you might as well take it to the next level, whatever you're doing.
If anybody knows how to take it to the next level, it's you, Turbo.
Can you elaborate on what that nickname means?
Sure. Well, Alec is the turbo hippie. He's constantly pushing himself to the limits of what he can do on a bicycle, on skis, on tiny skateboards, on giant skateboards, on his feet, on his hands.
Any skateboards? Are you talking about fingerboarding?
I assumed you would take that as, as far as it could go. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's one of my alter egos is Turbo Hippie. And I specifically, that name came into my head because I was I was in full cycling gear, like racing spandex head to toe, and had these sunglasses that were like, these kind of like visor like wraparound shades that are completely mirrored. And I was wearing all that gear, but then I had like my long hair blowing in the wind, and I was probably smoking some reefer at the same time. And so it's just like I'm crossing between two different worlds here, and there's an alter ego that can make this possible for me, and his name is Turbo Hippie.
Yeah, man. God, you definitely know how to ride a bike for sure. I started getting into road biking this summer and really started to love it. And I'm already kind of looking forward to next summer where I can push myself a little bit more with it. I think because so the previous 3 years I had rode the pedicab full time in the summer and like so riding a bicycle professionally in a sense. a tricycle.
Professional tricycle rider.
You know, the very beginning through trial and out to its finished and administered to people in under 2 years. But if the death count was 10 times what it is right now, that's not really like fast enough. So, it's just life is a crazy experiment. Society is a crazy experiment. And it's really unfortunate that people have to suffer due to that. And I don't want to see people suffer due to other people's negligence, but I agree that like simply wearing a mask, like it's not a big ask, but it's also not doing like, it's not protecting the world. You know what I mean? It's protecting you. So do it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one because I think it is a big ask. It's like, I mean, for me, like breathing fresh air and having my face uncovered when I choose is like, that's a freedom that I really appreciate. And again, I'm happy to wear, not happy. I willingly wear a mask in a circumstance where I'm close to people. But the idea that you should just wear one whenever you go outside, I think is not really founded in much logic. And I also think like I really do think it's not healthy for us in a number of different ways. One being that we're social creatures and that it's not natural for us to be covered up and separated from each other in this enforced way. But yeah, I see where you're coming from in terms of wanting to have respect and care for other people. With regards to the vaccine, I think in a sense it's a little bit symptomatic of how we tend to deal with issues in general in our society, which is to prescribe drugs as opposed to deal with the real problem. So I think the real problem that we have is that we're massively unhealthy both as an American society and as a global society. And very, very little talk has been thrown around during this time about actually building up your immune system and, living in a healthy way, like living in a way where you don't have to fear something like this, because this virus really isn't affecting healthy people very much at all. Like there's some people who are getting hit hard by it who are otherwise in good condition, but for the most part, the people who are really getting hit hard by this are people who are old and unhealthy, and most of the time had multiple pre-existing conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I think what's interesting about that is it seems like you're making a claim that like when you say people aren't being healthy enough, you have your own definition of healthy. But if you want to raise everybody's definition of what's healthy, then that means you have to have some kind of overarching sanction of what is healthy. And then you have to do you make the choice to live up to that, or are you forced to live up to that? And don't get me wrong, like I'm all for people being as healthy as possible, but in order to enforce a guideline over a large amount of people, it has to be pretty clear and pretty direct, and that's something that can mean different things to different people. And that's it. I mean, I didn't really think about that until you just said it that way, but
well, let me say something about that. So what I mean by being unhealthy is like, this isn't just about my perception of it. This is like, there are a lot of numbers to support how unhealthy we are. Like the amount of people who are overweight or obese, the amount of people who die from heart conditions every year, the amount of people who have like autoimmune disorders are absolutely through the roof, higher levels than they've ever been before. There's a lot of measures that say that we have a lot of health issues, and a lot of them are basically come down to diet and toxins in the environment. So like two really clear things that we can do is essentially eat healthier, and I know that that's a subjective thing, and I to a certain extent, like, I don't think there should be any regulation about this stuff. Like, I really believe in personal freedom, and people, like, if they want to eat as healthy as they want to, like, that's their choice. But once the government starts telling me that I can't go outside and I can't run my business anymore, and, you know, starts putting this level of restrictions down, it's like, whoa, like, why aren't we doing this? You know, why do all these metrics not matter at all? Like the heart disease issue, like way more people die of heart disease than just about anything else. Like it's a massive issue. That's a health issue that we don't talk about ever at all. But suddenly we have this one health issue that's able to shut down the entire world. And
well, let's put it this way though. Like, so say like instead of creating a vaccine, like we could have cured a certain number of people of COVID, or at least protected them against COVID by reducing their health risks to heart disease. So in order to do that, either they have to make the choice to get healthier, or the government's going to say you have to do this. And that, I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't. If maybe there are governments in the world that mandate a certain level of healthiness, but if you're all
slippery slope.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is if you value your personal freedoms and the personal freedoms of others, then it becomes really difficult to say, you know, where do you draw the line? I don't know. I don't have an answer for this. They're questions. They're out there in the ether. And I've been watching so much CNN lately because of the I guess the mob riot / protest that happened last Wednesday.
Yeah, the Doom channel.
You know, to me it's interesting because it makes me think about governments, and I'm currently in the middle of, you know, potentially moving to Canada because Charlotte's Canadian and they have a really different government. And to me, I'm not trying to escape. We just want to live together, and it's really difficult to do that when you're from different countries. It's kind of crazy. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, well, what does constitute a good government for the people? And I don't know. I mean, is it good to value freedom of choice over everything? I mean, maybe not, because we should also maintain a certain level of health among the culture. And or if we want it to be like institutionally culturalized within ourselves, then that also comes from the government because they control like education and stuff like that. And I agree with you, like all of these things that are ailing us can be changed without something like a vaccine. But in order to do that, we also need to be we need to be willing to relinquish a certain amount of control. Possibly.
Yeah. That's where I have a hard time, and that's where a lot of people have a hard time. I think what you're speaking of is an interesting thought. And in comparing the United States government and the Canadian government, have you come up with any? Can you enlighten us a little bit more on what that research has brought up?
Well, to my understanding, and I don't claim to be extremely knowledgeable about anything, but the they have socialized healthcare in Canada, so everybody receives free healthcare. You pay for it through your tax money. That means you don't have to pay for additional insurance. However, like I think dental, and you can pay for dental insurance. Like dental is not included. So there's small caveats and whatever.
We'll take care of your body, but not your teeth.
Yeah, for
Those
some
are your
reason
teeth.
your mouth isn't part of your body. But anyways, and there are benefits and disadvantages to that system as well as when you compare it to ours. I think the number one thing that most people point out is that it can take a long time to see a doctor, whereas in the United States you have immediate access to healthcare if you can afford it. So what the thing that interests me, I think, the most is that, well, like, there are certain conditions that would allow for you to wait a certain amount of time to see a doctor. So that's okay to me. The other thing that almost frightens me more is, like, to think about in this country, there are women who, women have children, and you can literally go to the hospital and have a baby and come out $30,000 in debt and also have a baby. And that seems really wrong. That seems like institutionally wrong to me. Like, if you want people to have children, you can't simultaneously throw them into massive amounts of medical debt. Whereas if you are in Canada or another country with socialized medicine, you can go and you can have your baby and it can be safe. And even if there's a complication, you're not going to end up paying for that out of your pocket. Like, the society and the government is there to aid you and take care of you. And for me, that's something I'm really interested in experiencing more after having experienced the healthcare system here, where, like, I didn't have health insurance for the last 4 years. I haven't seen a doctor in 4 years. Like, how good is that for me? I don't, I do a good enough job taking care of myself. I value the outdoors. I value my physical well-being and my mental well-being, and I try to take care of myself in those regards. But not everybody's capable of doing that. And if you're not capable of doing that, that's the whole reason we have societies and government, is to take care of each other, not to leave each other behind, so I'm excited to experience that and see what it's like. It's the same in Japan. It's everybody there is taken care of. People don't have to worry about that. But there are disadvantages too, and I'm interested to see what those are as well. I haven't experienced it yet, so.
Yeah, the socialized medicine thing is definitely a hot button issue around here, and for good reason. For those of you, if any of you young ladies are thinking about having a baby or about to have a baby, just so you know, the midwives were way cheaper than that and way better. So think about a home birth, empower yourself. It was also like that. So that was a really, really beautiful, healing, spiritual experience of having our child at home. Emily was fully certain that was how she wanted to do it, and before and afterwards we felt that way. It's like, if we had spent that whole time in the hospital, it would have been like a really rough, like, kind of traumatic experience, and instead it was like, it was transcendently beautiful. And our daughter was born in the water in our home, and once she was with us, we were just at home. We were not in a hospital. We didn't have to, like, drive home with our newborn baby. The one thing about it is that if complications do happen, it's good to be in a hospital. So that's a lot of times why people do it. But on the other hand, a lot of those people end up getting induced or getting C-sections because the doctor needs to, go home because their shift is going to be over. And that's like, that's not speculation. That's very real. I was a C-section baby. I was born 29.5 degrees of Libra as a C-section baby. So they brought me out just in time to save me from being a Scorpio.
Yeah, I was a C-section baby too, and like I don't know, I'm fine for the most part, but
Full-blooded Scorpio.
but
Maybe.
yeah, and like the baby thing's just one example. Like, you know, there's all kinds of ways that can be transmuted, you know, into different. You could take that example and turn it into something else and whatever, and there's probably a million different points you could illustrate for both sides. But yeah,
Yeah, we do have socialized medicine. I mean, we have socialized medicine for anybody who's under a certain income level. The problem is if you just jump over that income level a little bit and then have some big medical incident happen, all of a sudden you've gotten more than your year's income in a single medical bill, and that's a big problem. And a lot of people are actually made destitute or homeless or whatever simply by medical bills. Like that's a real big issue in our problem. So it's like how willing are we to leave people behind, with our desire to have privatized medicine. Also, the medical industrial complex has a very strong sway in Washington, as does the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So actually being able to make change on this is something that has like really powerful, massive financial forces pushing against it. So that's another thing going on.
Yeah, and I think I mean that's, you know, I'm interested in talking more about the protests because it's nothing like that has happened here in, you know, at least 100 years. And I think there are so many things like that where there are people that have been pushed and pushed and pushed to these places in our society where they have no other choice. I mean, for most of I feel like not for all, I don't want to speak in like completes for any group of people, but the protest or the riot, I should call it, you know, it wasn't just, they were Trump supporters, but I feel like the overall tone of that and the way I've interpreted it is that those people were upset about the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they fairly want justice for all people, like the Black Lives Matter movements are asking for justice for all people. But that's
a lot of them do.
What's that?
I think a lot of them do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that I think that that's represented within the group, but is that maybe that I can't. I'm grateful that I haven't been pushed into a situation in my life where I feel like I have no choice other than to attempt to take policymakers and people of government hostage, which was what was attempted. I've never been in that situation, and I want to empathize with the people that are and have been. I don't think that the people that took that action necessarily were either, because if it were, I think it would have been much more racially diverse group of people, right? Like Black people are, in my opinion, like, you know, much more discriminated and put into a worse position in our country than the white people that were storming the Capitol. And if that's really what it was solely about, then it would have been more representative. But, you know, those people.
I don't think that's true.
Well, that's you don't have to think it's true, but.
Sorry, I didn't mean. I interrupted you. Will you finish that point?
Yeah, I guess I just mean that, you know, what all I'm trying to say is people have been pushed to a tipping point due to things like the way our medical system and our healthcare system works and other things. And that was shown on Wednesday. I don't think that kind of action is appropriate. I don't condone violence of any kind. And while those things were present, I think a lot of other things were also present, like racism and like bigotry, which is really clear from the imagery that we've seen from that day. But yeah, it's like, what is going to change? What are they going to do? And I don't know. I don't have the answers for what the right thing to do is. I'm not that person, but I'm really curious to see what happens.
Yeah, it's really a historic moment we're in. So to timestamp this thing is January 12th, 2021. We had an insurrection in the United States Capitol just a couple days ago. And I'm not sure if you've heard the number, like a very, very large number of Trump supporters gathered in Washington, D.C., and a much, much smaller number of those people stormed the Capitol, entered it. It seems like with a variety of reasons. From the accounts I've heard, it's not that they were all really exactly on the same page about what they were doing and why they're doing it. But as the point that you made is that, like, a lot of people have been pushed to the breaking point this year and in the past couple of years and even decades. And I personally think that this is a symptom of our deeply corrupt political system that does not represent the people on either side. So that, like, to me, I'm going to go ahead and admit that this year I did not vote for a president because I could not stomach either of the candidates. I think Biden represents an old corrupt order. I think Trump represents a new corrupt order and a crazy narcissist who is really scary to have in charge of our country. And I literally couldn't vote for either of them. I live in California, so I knew Biden was going to win. But I didn't really see him as a better candidate because, as I said, I believe that he represents an old corrupt order that is simply reasserting its power and, in my opinion, going in some really scary places. And the deep down system and the deep down problem that I'm talking about is simply that our politicians and our system of government does not represent the people. It's been completely bought out. It's entirely corrupt. And a lot of people are feeling very disenfranchised, disaffected, angry, frustrated, everything and anything in between. And so we've been seeing stuff like this happen all year, pretty much. I mean, since really the George Floyd killing kicked it off, and since then it's been pretty consistently, there's been civil unrest, violence, riots, like protests all over the country, especially in major cities. And it's like a very potent time in American history, and we're all kind of waiting and watching to see where this is going. And really, I mean, for me, one of my biggest things, and you touched on this a little bit, is like, it's very important to have empathy and understanding for people on both sides of this issue. I think there's a lot of people who are still trying to play this divisive, toxic partisan politics game, which pretty much characterizes American politics and politics in general, at a time when we really do need unity, and we need to, like, be aware of and acknowledge what really actually unites us as a country, if anything, and what values we can come together in supporting, both from the right and from the left. So that's my little rant about that. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody, all races, and all people.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, I understand where you're coming from in terms of your choice to abstain from voting. For me, like, I voted for Biden because I felt like it was very dangerous for a lot of people for Trump to remain in office, and I wanted to take a stand in that direction. I don't think, or I agree with you in that, like, I don't think Biden is a great choice. I don't think things are going to dramatically change because I chose to vote for him. But to me, the idea of Donald Trump staying in office for another 4 more years was it was too scary, especially after what happened this year. And there were peaceful protests that became violent due to actions that were outside of the protesters' discretion many times. I'm not going to say there's zero protesters out there that are blameless, but I think the majority of the time they were instigated into violent acts by the opposite side, by the police. And after this Wednesday, it kind of goes to show that, like, Donald Trump, to me, doesn't have a problem with violence happening. He perpetuated the violent acts from police on the protesters, and he has gone on to not condemn the violent acts that happened on Wednesday. So that's a person to me that kind of says, not necessarily directly, but still quite openly, that he's okay with violence. And I'm not, so I don't want him to be our elected official and our elected leader and the face of our country.
Yeah, amen to that. He's a pretty it's going to be great to have him out of the office of president.
I'm so excited in like 15 years when like all the movies start coming out, or like 20 years or maybe even 30 years later, there's going to be like all kinds of crazy biopic movies about his time in office and about him. And, just that's going to be so wild to like look back on this time, assuming that everything is still existing and we can look back.
Let's hope.
Yeah, and I believe that we will continue to persevere, and I do believe that things will get better. Things might get worse before they get better, as they generally do, but I'm still optimistic and hopeful for the long-term future of humanity.
Absolutely, me too. And I'm a lifelong optimist no matter what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on record once again. It's gonna be a relief to have him out of there. I really wish the Democrats could have done a better job of choosing some decent candidates. I don't know how they came up with Biden as the best choice, but
well, I mean, there's a lot of reasoning behind that, right? It wasn't just decided. And I read one piece I feel like it was a newspaper from Atlanta, or from the state of Georgia somewhere. But this news piece really moved me. And it was that Black people were supporting Biden, not because they thought that he was the best choice, but because they thought that older and more white people would be more likely to vote for him than somebody else like Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or Pete Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders. So it was almost like it wasn't their first choice either, but they saw him as like, that's the middle ground. This is who they're going to push so that more people will vote for the Democratic Party than abstain or vote for Donald Trump. And it's all game. We all have to figure out like what's the best way to win and move one step forward, and not to either, to hopefully move like 10 steps forward at a time just is not as easy to do.
Yeah, I get that it was the political play that they had to do. I've been a lifelong Democrat up until this election, and this year I watched the Democrats do a lot of a lot of scary, disconcerting, and downright dishonest things. And one of the things I saw them doing was really kind of cynically using the Black Lives Matter protest and that movement in general, essentially as a pawn to play to their electorate. And it's pretty well documented that the organization Black Lives Matter is well funded by the Democratic Party. And I think the way that they were using that organization, but also like all the honest people who are, you know, simply trying to be part of a movement for positive change, I think was really cynical and really damaging, and, you know, literally took a lot of lives and, you know, burned down parts of cities and yeah, like really caused a lot of damage. And I just saw how they were using it as a political pawn. And it was fucking, it freaked me out. I was like, whoa, were you guys doing this last time too? And the time before that? Because this seems to come up every 4 years or so.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, like, you know, it's a power grab. It was disturbing to me to see that we had, you know, over 20 candidates for the Democratic Party at one time. That to me, it screams nothing but selfishness. Like, how about Michael Bloomberg pumped, it was like $500 million into his campaign that lasted.
Okay, so,
so I'm going to start with this one because this is one I created at your house last time we were together. And I was really inspired by your daughter, who was like 6 months old at the time. And just like her kind of experience discovering everything around her constantly. Like everything is a discovery. And so that's why I named this piece like an unexpected discovery. And I wanted it to have kind of like a storybook feel of this girl, like kind of coming into this mystical fairy oasis. And then there's this like larger than life spirit or creature or bear there. And
I'm seeing just a thumbnail. Are you clicked on the big one?
Yeah, I am. Let me see. New share, maybe. Okay. I think I have to do it like this.
There it is.
There it is. Nice. So yeah, and it's been a fun experience for me. Like I don't go into each of these pieces with a lot of like intention. I really let the moment kind of move me and I flow with where the piece kind of goes. And so the bear ends up representing this very like motherly, protective guardian kind of spirit in this image. And to me, that was like, you know, I was really spending time with your wife and Coral's mother for the first time. And so I was super influenced by that. And I really love how this piece came out.
Yeah, that's beautiful to hear. Little coral baby in there. Discovering the world. It's really wild to watch that happening. Just, yeah, it's really in real time. You're watching them become a grown human.
Yeah. So, okay, so you've seen that one. So let's, okay.
Whoa.
Are you seeing this B formation?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. So yeah, we'll just go straight to this one. And this one for me was kind of like a play on the idea of like be cool. So I put this girl in the middle with her sunglasses. And yeah, I can't remember. I've written about this one, but now I'm having trouble totally remembering exactly all the symbolism that I kind of envisioned to go with it. But this one's kind of more fun and psychedelic looking. And I don't know, what's your experience with it? What's your experience with the bees?
Yeah, it's very psychedelic looking. Bright, intense colors. I'm always a fan of hexagons. And yeah, to me, they represent the sacred geometric structure of life. And in a sense, the bees are uh, creating this in a way, like, I guess I think about it as they're creating it without even knowing that that's how they're doing it per se. Like they're creating with the patterns of sacred geometry simply because that's the way that nature moves, not because they're thinking, oh hey, we're going to make a bunch of hexagons in this thing. And I think it's also the way it has to do with gravity and kind of like the most efficient way to fill a space, which I
Yeah, it
think
is definitely
is
the
cool to think about.
yeah. All right, so that wasn't the one I intended to show. Let me see if I can get
And
to.
the pollinators too.
Oh, okay, so I want close that, and then go here, and then this one. I come back and I go here, screen share to this share.
Oh, oh yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah. So this is the dolphin piece, and I loved this idea of how the dolphin is kind of like at this exchange of two different worlds, like above and below the water. And I know recently you've had a lot of experiences with the dolphins out in the ocean and surfing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they're such an interesting creature because they're very playful and fun, but also kind of have this deeper knowledge and intuition. And so I liked kind of putting that in the same image of like this, one dolphin is kind of like flipping out of the water and being super fun and in the sunshine, and everything's really grand. And then this other group is like really diving deep below the surface into these kind of more mysterious areas and potentially like taking the viewer or whoever pulls this card or this idea into a deeper inner space, but without it being kind of too serious or having any negative connotations.
Yeah, it looks like they're playing on either side, both above and below. Something that just the phrase that came into my mind upon seeing this was the idea that almost everything is going on below the surface. Like most of what's happening we can't actually see.
Yeah, and yeah, because that's their experience, right? They can come out above the water, but like not very much. And
Right.
and here we are, like always out of the water, and they exist in this more like, you could just say, like a deeper mindset, um, and they can choose to like really travel deep into it. And so I hope that they carry the viewer safely to that space.
Yeah, this one's got a really great joyful energy and balance about it. And I like how you incorporated the actual light source, the sunshine, and then also the stars is a nice celestial influence there. As you were saying, I've had a lot of experiences with dolphins recently, and I feel like in the last couple of years they've really been a spirit animal for me because they've been, yeah, like very literally present in my life, and whenever I see them, it's this joyful, beautiful experience. I'm always like, oh, good. Thank God, there's dolphins right there. Because I had a pretty strong fear of sharks when I started surfing, like bordering on phobia, and it's pretty much, it hasn't gone away, but I've gotten comfortable with them. And anyways, whenever I see the dolphins, I'm like, ah, good, the dolphins are here to protect me. And it's just so cool to watch them jumping. Like whenever you see a dolphin like really jumping out of the water, it's such a gift, because I see them a lot, and most of the time it's like it's passing by. You see their fins going, and maybe you'll see a little bit more than that, but like every once in a while you just see these like full body leaps out of the water, like close to you, and it's so special. It's so magical.
That's really cool. In Japan, there's a special animal. They call it a kamushka, and it's kind of like a cross between a deer and a goat. So they're just like these weird furry creatures, and they have really tiny horns. And that I equate a similar experience to see, because you'll see them when you're out skiing. They're just like kind of out there, and they don't have any natural predators, so they're like just these weird, like, kind of like almost like pigs out in the middle of winter. And it's fun it's so cool to see animals like in their natural habitat, and you're kind of like having an experience with them. And I'm a little bit jealous of the dolphins and the surfing, but I love all the experiences that you've shared around that.
It's been amazing. Very cool.
Okay, let's find another one.
Yeah, also the dolphins are the narwhal of the South.
Okay, here's a very important one to me.
Oh, yes.
So this is a picture of my wife from our wedding day. And I really wanted to include her in this because she's such an inspiration to me in everything that she does and who she is. And yeah, I love her so much. So I really wanted to create this very like peaceful, glowing kind of experience, because that's how I feel and that's what I see when I'm with her. Her zodiac sign is the rabbit or the bunny. And we have lots of little bunny jokes. So that to me was kind of like her animal form, her representation, or her communion with the animal community was to be represented through bunnies. Yeah, so she's my little bunny.
That's really sweet. While we're on this one, I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience of manifesting her.
Absolutely. So I just, when I decided to like go to Japan for the first time and like spend an extended amount of time there, I really opened myself up to the experience. I had been like struggling kind of emotionally and personally with personal relationships, or I guess and I desired to find a partner that was compatible with me. And so before I left, I went from Colorado to Santa Monica and was at your wedding before I went to Japan. And it really set a huge tone for my experience. And I didn't go to Japan looking for love, but I did go with the intention of being really open to whatever came my way. And we met on a dating app, and we ended up talking for 3 months before I ended up meeting her in person. And I met her about 3 days before I left Japan. We hung out for those 3 days, and then I left, and we kept in touch, and she ended up visiting. And then 6 months later, she visited again. And, just this whole time we're in touch, talking to each other every day. And eventually, I went back out there and spent more time with her. And but I wasn't sure still like what to do until maybe like it was in the middle of winter, and I was with some friends that I had invited to be out there with me as part of my ski experience that I created. And I was talking with them, and I kind of realized like you know, I'm already feeling instances where I want to choose her over skiing, which was like a really, it sounds so superficial to say that, but it was very profound experience because, my entire life had kind of revolved around this activity. And I was even moving to other countries to pursue it in a professional manner. So this was a really big change for me, but I had set an intention of being very welcoming towards whatever came my way. And I think in large part that was because of, things that I had discussed with you and talked with you about. And, you always had a heavy hand in like setting up your intention and then manifesting what you want and bringing it to you. And I don't feel like I, broke some kind of cosmic rule or, like bent the laws of nature to bring her to me. But I think,
No, you can't do that.
it's not like it was like magic
Not
or
allowed.
something. But I think for me, like I think of setting my intention as a way of almost like resetting your expectation. And then when you decide to do that, you will see things in a different way. You'll experience things in a different way. And that being said, it's really hard to do, but I think one of the things that helped me do that was at your wedding, and it was such a profound and moving experience to be there. And Emily was heavily pregnant at the time, and it was a state of ecstasy.
That wasn't heavily. Oh man, it got much heavier for her.
Yeah, so that was my experience with manifesting my partner and setting my intention. And I couldn't be happier. Charlotte's here with me right now, and we're just really in love and happy and looking towards the future.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad that that's worked out for you. It's a beautiful thing.
And now that I have that, I so want it for everybody else, because I know not everybody wants that. And that's totally fine. But for those of you that do, like, it's so attainable, it's so possible, but it really does start with you. And by you, I mean me, or me, I mean you.
Yeah, well, you changed yourself in a sense in order to be ready to receive love or greet love or meet love or however you want to say it.
Yeah.
You prepared yourself. Yeah, I don't know if I even told you, but I've written a book. It's almost finished, which is specifically about manifesting your life partner, and more generally about manifesting in general. And it's and just to kind of piggyback off what you said about the laws of nature, I think it's I think that's one thing that will dissuade certain perhaps scientific materialists is what I'm trying to say. It might dissuade that type of hyper rational person to pursue something like manifestation, when in fact I really fully believe and have experienced personally that it is in alignment with the laws of the universe. And when you decide to essentially catch that wave of fortune, amazing, beautiful things will happen, and that's a decision that you can make. I'm reading a really interesting book right now called Reality Transurfing, which I'd highly recommend for a lot of people. But one of the things he talks about is avoiding destructive pendulums, which are essentially like these momentums of humans and culture that take place almost beyond the control of a single human being. Like, for instance, you could look at the political division in America and think, like, it's actually not controlled by anybody at all, even the people at the top. but it's this thing that has momentum beyond what any of those individual people's intentions are. And what that type of pendulum will do is it'll essentially suck people in and use them for its purposes, and take those people away from what their true purpose in life is, and kind of just like yeah, as I said, like draw them in and use them for the purpose of the movement. And the thing about it is that the movement itself doesn't really have like the care for individuals at all. It's simply just like going where it's going. And on the other hand, rather than getting sucked into those type of things, instead you can do something which is catching these waves of fortune, which are like these momentums of energy which are going where you want to go, and like moving yourself into that direction. And so, as being a surfer, I'm really, this metaphor is very appealing to me. I'm like, oh, you can just catch the wave of fortune, like ding. I am indeed going to be doing that for sure. So I'm pretty early on in the book, but highly would recommend it. And I would say that in this case, what you've done is caught the wave of fortune to help you meet your sweet lady here.
I love that metaphor. A wave of fortune it's a beautiful metaphor to think about, and I feel like it's very appropriate. And then what it makes me think in return is, you know, every wave is a wave of fortune if you position yourself in the right way. Similarly to surfing, is like, what, you know, you can let a wave could easily push you over, or you could body surf it to the shore if you suck at surfing, which is what I would do. But, you know, but I think, yeah, like, you have to go through a personal change in order to accept each wave as a wave of fortune, in order for it to be a wave of fortune. So that's cool. I'm so glad that you're writing a book. I can't wait to read it, obviously. And yeah, I would definitely want to hear more about it.
It's almost done. Coming right up.
Coming right up. All right, let me I got many more here but I'll select a few. This is my most recent one. And I think you'll really appreciate it. Now I go here, share this, share.
Yes, I did. I saw this one in the thumbnails and I was like, yep, definitely that one. Is that Jared and the golden retriever also?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So this is two things. First, the dog belongs to somebody that I work with right now. His owner's name is Scott. The dog's name is Winston. He is a very handsome and beautiful dog, and I really wanted to feature him. He has his own Instagram. He's at Winstadog. I highly recommend you follow Winstadog. And this is also a photo of a friend of mine that I took. His name's Jared, and he's also somebody that's been super influential on me. And this is like a fantastic photo of him skiing. I love it so much, and I'm so honored to have taken that picture. And it's funny because, like, I don't really draw a comparison between Jared and the dog. It's more about the comparison I see between skiing and dogs, in that dogs are eternally friendly. Like, at least this dog especially, just exudes love and fun, and to me that's what skiing is as well, especially skiing in POW. And I feel like I caught, in this moment, I was able to photograph somebody that could commune in the same state of mind as a dog does at all times, or not all times, but relatively speaking. And I loved this image because I feel like, people that skiing are mountain people, and mountain people love dogs so much. So I really wanted to, I've already done a piece of a wolf, and that has a really different meaning. But this is like this really positive expression of the outdoors and of skiing and of um, what dogs mean to people.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I'd never drawn that connection, but as soon as I saw it, I could feel that, because there's like, it's that joyful nature, that especially golden retrievers are especially loyal and joyful dogs. And also a lot of avalanche dogs, I believe, are golden retrievers.
That is really true. I hadn't put that together actually, but yes, that's very true.
And he's skiing in Eastvale, which is an area prone to avalanches.
Yes, it is indeed. So yeah, you could even say there's like a spirit of protection around this image as well, and knowing that, you know this animal companion that we've created a relationship with over millennia is there to rescue you and to save you in some ways. As I've seen skiing do that for people. I've seen skiing save people, from themselves, from their life, from the negativity of the world. Um, and I know lots of different sports do that for lots of people, but this is the one that's closest to me. Um, and there's so much culture around it as well that, yeah, I that's the avalanche dog part is something I didn't even catch. So thank you for bringing that to light. I love that.
Happy to get it in there. Yeah, skiing is such a joyful activity. I have a lot of love for skiing, and I always will. I've been surfing a lot, and uh, it's like, instead of where with skiing you have a chairlift for the most part, which takes you up to the top of the mountain. And when you get to the top, the mountain is always there for you to ride down. And with surfing, instead of having a chairlift, you have your arms. You're paddling yourself out with the waves coming at you, trying to go over them or dive under them, and for like a very short moment, getting in front of them right in the right spot to ride along this momentary section of the wave before it crashes on the shore. And it's really beautiful when you get it, but man, I miss the ease and flow of skiing sometimes.
Yeah. I've really noticed this year, especially like this year, I did not pedicab all summer. So I'm in vastly different physical shape than I normally am. And I instead took like a desk job. So I'm sitting more than I've ever been. And I can still go skiing and like ski pretty well. Because as we've all said before, like skiing is mostly just standing at a really high velocity.
Yeah, and you've got the lifelong skier skills. I mean, if you learned how to ski shortly after you learned how to walk, like you have a massive leg up on most people in the world who didn't grow up around it.
I imagine it's similar for surfing. If you probably like with Emily's brother, right? Started surfing, probably at the time he was 5 or whatever.
He actually didn't start super early, but he's got he's got the skill that comes with many hours. And you see a lot of kids out there who are just ripping already, who are like, 10, 11, 12, whatever, or younger. But it's harder barrier for entry for sure with surfing. Like skiing you just don't need as much physical strength to get into. Whereas with surfing, I think for a lot of kids it's just like a little too hard. Like they get discouraged by the strength you need to like really do it well.
I can definitely say it was exhausting for me the last time we went and did it together, and I taped the shit out of my nipples.
Oh man, yeah, gotta wear that rash guard, kids.
Yeah. All right, let's
or get a tan. It's your choice.
All right. So I got another one I'm really excited to show you, because it's also influenced by one of, in my opinion, one of your best paintings that exists. And I don't know who owns that painting, but they are very blessed to own that painting. Let me see if I can, here we go.
Oh yeah. Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen this one before. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so this is one I did really recently as well in the last few weeks. And
Wow.
I had to, the only way I was going to create an image of an octopus was to make it some kind of galactic space octopus, in honor of the galactic space octopus queen
That's what you have to do.
that you've painted. And you should find a way to throw your painting into this video as well. Because that painting's stunning. But to me, I wanted to highlight how the octopus really has this foreign, almost alien, not only physical form, but just in a way that even through studying the octopus, it's so difficult for us to understand that creature, because they're hard to find, they're hard to study, but they've been proven to be highly intelligent. And I think that the octopus has much more to show us in this world and in many worlds. So I created this piece where the octopus is coming out of the water, but is like still like kind of not necessarily, the space is just like another level. So it's like coming out of one level and into another level of experience and guiding the way for this explorer. And it has a really, in my opinion, like a really gentle and feeling that, it's like this warm acceptance of the light, and that the octopus, that's how they're communing with us. They want to show us the way through this kind of warm but very confusing acceptance.
Warm alien light bringer. Yeah, for those who haven't seen my painting, it's based on an ayahuasca vision that I had where I saw the shaman as an octopus queen who was, with all of her different tentacles, essentially managing the energy of the entire room, helping out different people by sending them light beams of healing energy from across the room. And I could see all that happening. And at the same time, she was holding an eagle feather and a rattle and this lantern, which was a sacred geometric lantern that was, as it was spinning, was morphing and changing shapes and showing me the patterns of sacred geometry, like from the seed of life to the fruit of life to the flower of life, and of course with Metatron's cube. All of those patterns were like within the lantern, and light was emanating out of it. And so in my painting, it takes the form of the dodecahedron, which is also said to be the shape of the entire universe. So it's like showing us this lantern that represents creation itself, and holding that lantern within its hand was a really interesting thing for the octopus to be doing and for the shaman to be doing.
It's the fucking best painting. And
well,
I'll just say,
make me the host again. I'll
at
I'll
the end for sure. Or I don't know how much editing you're doing with these, but just fucking splice it in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit.
But I'll just say, so all of these are done digitally. Most of them are with royalty-free photos that I've taken off of sites like Pixabay and Unsplash. Some of them I use my own photos. Some of them I do some hand-drawn elements in as well. But this is just the process that I use on the computer is more almost like collage-like. and in a way like almost sculptural for me, because I start taking this one element, and so I'll look at like 10 different pictures of an octopus and kind of see which one inspires me, and then I'll add some different backgrounds and like, okay, well, I like this one with the galaxy, and I kind of build more elements, and really it's fun because as opposed to a painting where it can feel very permanent with each stroke, digitally everything is so movable and changeable, that I can really follow the flow and the energy of the piece, and kind of let it guide me more than having a really specific vision, going into the artwork. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully for the last set of pieces, I want to start doing some like screen capture to kind of show people more the process. But anyways, yeah, so and it's fun. I've been using Photoshop for a long time, so I feel really comfortable and fluid using it. And yeah, anyways, that's kind of the process that I use with all of these.
Yeah, you're making me want to do that again, because I'm like, oh, that's kind of the way that I paint, but then I just like cover over all of this work that I've done, because I'm like, let me try this.
Yeah, the paintings that I've done that are more successful, in my opinion, are generally paintings that are like, I've sketched them out, I've created a plan, and then I rely more heavily like on my physical skill and ability to paint. And my paintings are kind of less exploratory. And then with this medium, I feel like a lot more open and free to make mistakes, change things, go back, have different iterations. A lot of these that I've made have like different size iterations, different color versions, which is all really fun. And I'm just kind of showing like the kind of standard vision of how I see the actual physical cards being. But
Yeah, one last thing on the octopus. You reminded me of that time at the warehouse at the art barn when I was finishing the second iteration of the octopus queen. And right before I finished it, I was kind of like in this crunch time mode where I was like, okay, these are the last final hours. Like, I'm going to finish this thing right now. And right as that was happening, we took a break, of course, because when you paint so hard, you must take a break. And we went out to the hot tub. It was like kind of a cool Colorado night. We went out to the hot tub, and it was like this big, luxurious hot tub. And while we were in the hot tub, I remember, and like these underwater lights in the hot tub too. And I remember getting in the hot tub and getting under the water and like letting my limbs all be completely loose so that they would just like move with the flow of the water, and just being like, I'm going to now embody the octopus. Like in the hot tub, like letting my limbs go and just like really feeling what that felt. And then afterwards I came in and finished that painting.
Was that the one for Andrew or the one for Nate?
Yeah, that was the second one for Andrew.
Just to add context to that story, at one point in time, Jared granted Alec and I access to this really amazing, what we turned into as an art studio, but it was a barn. And, it was on this amazing ranch property, and the main house had a hot tub, but we spent a lot of time there creating art and manifesting our visions.
Mm-hmm. Many arts were made in that barn.
Okay, so I want to do one more, and I'm going to pull up the main screen, and I'll let you kind of choose which one you want to look at. Let's see, from the thumbnails.
Let's go for the intuitive. Oh man, there's a couple good choices here for me. Let's take a look at the turtle.
All right, awesome, great choice. Okay, do do that.
And the waves of Zion seems to be on topic for some of the stuff we've been discussing.
Yeah, and that one is also was I did during my trip to Santa Monica when I was with you and Coral and Emily, and was also really kind of influenced by my time there with you guys and our Rastafarian roots.
Waves of Zion. Yeah, there's a lot of waves of Zion coming through right now. Well, yeah, this one has a lot of details that I couldn't see before. Sea turtles are surfers too, you know.
Totally, dude. What is it? They in the movie in Finding Nemo, they're like ride in the East Australian current, dude. Yeah, this piece isn't totally related to the depiction of that animal, but it is such a great depiction of sea turtles in our kind of popular culture, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, this piece was more I have another friend at work who she's like really into tarot reading. And she's been kind of helping me stay motivated with this project. You know, she kind of asks me like, you know, when's the last time you worked on the animal card, just out of her own curiosity. And the first time I had told her about it, and then she had kind of said like, oh, like sea turtle would be a great one. And so I kind of did this one with her in mind. And you know, as a tarot card reader, she has her own like spirituality that I really feel when I experience with her, and I kind of wanted to show that through this representation of like the third eye or the mind's eye, kind of being like elevated, and the sea turtle being that surfer type. You know, he's ripe for carrying an idea like that on his back. You know,
surfing the waves of fortune.
Exactly. If a sea turtle's surfing, that's a pretty decent platform for you to surf on if he's willing, and he's definitely willing in this picture. So
seems to be, yes. Cool.
Yeah, I really liked in this one too, like using this bubble texture that I'd found in the background to kind of like give this, because the bubbles like they almost end up looking like stars, but they create this idea of being under the water. So I had a lot of fun with that texture. But yeah, anyways, many more to come.
Many more. Yes, indeed. Yeah, we'll have to look at some of your paintings next time too.
For sure. You can see one in the background. This one I did many years ago.
Nice. Yeah, I like that one. Can you tell us a little bit about how yoga was part of your healing journey?
Sure. So when I guess I could leave that in the picture. When I first started doing it was the time when I was just starting to get sober, and really make some serious life changes. And you know, I could have picked a lot of things, but I think the spiritual aspect of yoga and kind of like the internal communion with yourself really benefited me more than like traditional like exercise like running. And it also was a bit of a community for me to participate in, which I really needed at the time, because I was also like coming off of really, you know, poor personal relationship that didn't serve me, and certainly I did not serve the other person the way I should have. So that it was like it was the physical and emotional and mental transformation that I gained through going to yoga and learning it really from the ground up, was it was life changing. And I remember the first mantra that I adopted, and this was about 4 or 5 months into the yoga process, was to replace judgment with gratitude. And that resonated with me so much at that time that it profoundly altered, the way I live my life and the course that I ended up taking. And yeah, since then I've pursued yoga in varying amounts of intensities. Right now it's super low. Actually, so this winter, well, Charlotte and I had planned to go to Bali and do our yoga teaching certification course. Spend 30 days there learning yoga. And that got canceled because of COVID. Like, we were supposed to go April 1st, and like COVID fucking shut down the world like March 20th.
Oof.
So it became this like, I'm not gonna say it was like intensely disappointing, but it changed it, like it affected how I was kind of participating with it after that. And I stopped really doing it as much. I felt like a little bit lost and disconnected from it after that kind of, that act of misfortune, which, if I had thought about it differently, I could have received it as a wave of fortune. I could have replaced my judgment with gratitude in that moment. But it's just, I've also learned through yoga that there's a lot of ebb and flow, and in your life and inside yourself. And just because I still I still have a yogic practice that I do, that's internal and that's mine, that I'll always carry with me, wherever I go. So yeah, I yoga was a big transformation for me from becoming like this kind of insolent adolescent, who like couldn't conform to any kind of societal norms. And it helped me calm myself in a way that I was able to, start participating in a more beneficial way with my family and myself and the rest of society. So it was a huge turning point for me. And I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's all important stuff to look at for. And also, something, my personal experience with it was, we were working alongside each other for maybe like 2 or 3 years in the same building, both skiers and both artists, and we essentially like didn't hang out, hardly talked at all. And then you went through this transformation, and suddenly afterwards we were a lot more on the same page. And also you made friends with my brother, so that kind of like brought us together in that way. But I think it was partially because of your changing into a different style of person. Because something I remember from living in the mountain town that was really hard for me was that pretty much all evening community was based around drinking. It was like that was the thing to do at night. And yoga, I found, was one of the few ways that community was happening that wasn't based around going out to bars. And it's kind of like a recreational athletic community in general over there. But you can only ski with so many people or mountain bike with so many people, because most people can't keep up. And I thought it was a really nice way to have that connection of doing something healthy together. And I want to just like highlight that as something that is like a really important part of the human experience, and that God willing will be coming back into our lives very soon, as that has been one of the things that has been taken away from most people this year.
It's really interesting to hear about your experience with my transformation, like an outside experience, because it's true. Like, you know, we really weren't close for, it's not like we were immediately best friends, as Bryce and you described it, like old friends immediately. Like that was not our experience at all. Like we became friends over many times hanging out together. And yeah, I think yoga was part of that. And I love your sentiment that it's something that we can all do together. You know, all you need is a floor and enough space for all the people that you want to do it with.
Indeed, indeed. So I want to kind of wind it down and leave space for another episode in the future. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that I love your scarf. I feel somewhat sad that I'm not sporting mine, but next time I'll remember. Although it's much less of an essential garment around here, I must say.
Yeah, and this scarf too, I bargained for one of the times we went to Sonic Bloom together. Traded some artwork for it, some yogic artwork, and probably some dollars as well. But yeah, this. Thank you, I appreciate it. This is one of my favorites.
Sonic Bloom. So let's wrap it up with a little bit of art and philosophy. I want to hear a little bit about why you make art. Where are you going with it, and kind of what's the point?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a tug inside of me for why do I do that, because I think ultimately I like to make art for myself, selfishly, because it makes me feel connected to the greater whole. You know, some people would call that God. Some people want to call it a Holy Spirit or whatever, the universe. And that's what making art does for me. So in a sense, my artwork is made out of selfishness. Um, but I do love to share it with people. And I also realize that art has a very sacred purpose in the world. And that purpose is to communicate, and to communicate ideas that can't always be represented in words, to communicate ideas to people that cannot hear the words. And that's kind of like a newer mission that I guess that I'm attempting to take on, with this more recent project that I'm doing, like with the oracle cards, because I think that art has the ability to change people's lives. For me, one of the greatest changes in my life was when I started practicing yoga, and that to me that is an art form. And that's an art form, and it's an experience that I received from teachers, and that shared their artistry, their yogic artistry with me. It just happens to be that my preference for it is to communicate that visually. So I'm beginning to turn a corner. I think I spent most of my 20s really trying to understand how art how people interact with art, at least how people interact with visual art, because as a creator of visual art, I don't feel like I always had the same interaction that other people did. You know, I was more interested in, oh, I put that brushstroke there, and that color looks really good next to that color, and they use like all these more technical aspects of it, and kind of missed out on a lot of the messages, but I was receiving those artistic messages in other ways. Alex Gray's philosophy of art and how it represents almost a religion, I think is really beautiful. And, you know, I don't want to like piggyback off that too much, but it's a really beautiful sentiment what he says. I'm not gonna try to say it right now because I'll just butcher it. You should just go look it up. Look it up. It's probably on his Instagram somewhere.
Look up Alex Gray, everybody. He's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I think art does have that for me, visual art can be transcendental and communicate transcendental messages. And I'm not going to say I hope to give people that experience. I feel like that's a very lofty thing. And I think it's also can be very spontaneous for people. That's why I love this new project that I'm doing so much is I'm trying to create over 50 pieces of artwork. Like if one of those pieces resonates with one person, then I'll be really happy. And what's great is like I hope to give all 50 of those pieces to one person. So maybe one piece doesn't resonate with you at a certain time, but maybe another one does that day, and then you go back to the first one, and then you'll think about it differently because circumstances are different. So I guess, it's not as clean of a message as I'd like to give. So you could say that it's a work in progress, but I love to make art because it makes me feel really peaceful and at one with the universe. And I know that it has the power to send transcendental messages to others. And I hope that I can achieve that goal as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the spirit animal cards are a great way of really providing a method for people to interact with your art. Because, even if somebody like buys a single painting, they may look at it all the time, but they're not going to have the same experience of going through a card deck and actually picking out a card and being like, okay, like how does this relate to my life at this moment? And I think that self-reflective aspect is a very important part of art in general. But with spirit animal cards and tarot cards and things like that, it becomes a lot more direct because you're picking your message for the day, and then having that moment of thinking, okay, like why is this important for me right now? What is this saying to me at the moment? I think that's really cool. You've inspired me to pick that back up because, as you know, I've been working on my spirit animal card deck for probably the better part of a decade at this point. And when I say I've been working on it, I shouldn't. I did write another book, though. I'll say that. And one of my life goals is to make an entire tarot deck. That's in the cards, shall we say?
Well, I have 100% faith. I mean, I know that will happen for you, and I can't wait to see what that's like. And I'll just say I'll wrap us up by saying like, I just really appreciate you asking me to be here, and I love you as a brother and as a friend, and I just really appreciate everything that you are doing and bringing to the world, and appreciate all the times that we've spent together so much. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here, and I love you too. And also that you've already succeeded with your deck because you touched me with at least a couple of those cards. I'll say specifically the dolphin and the skier. Those are the ones that really resonated with my soul as it is right now. So
fantastic.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, rock on. Oh, all right. Well, it's very late. It's time to go to sleep.
Yeah, let's sign out. You're the host, so.
All right. Well, give my best to your family, and I'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Peace, brother. Good to see you.